just wanna you. Girl, I like the way you move. Really wanna get with you. Don't just
It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is Rubbin Minds. Welcome. My name is Ebuka Obiuchendu. Great to have you here with us once again. We're going to kick off the show like we always do, talking about the week that was. But of course, something I need to point out in the course of this show, especially in the last 2 years, we always made mention of the fact that we did lose, or we are missing a number of girls. The Chibok girls who were abducted some time ago, and we kept, putting up pressure on government and all of that, hoping to see them returned. We and many other media houses have continued to count the days, especially some individuals as well have done that, and the days continue to grow longer, and it's almost as if what we fear the most might just be real, even though nobody wants to say it, because I mean it's taking forever now, and we don't seem to be seeing a lot of signs. One of the most scary things I think I found out over the week is the fact that on Thursday this week, which is in about 4 days, it will be exactly 2 years since those girls were abducted from Chibok in 2014. 2 years on Thursday. So, I mean, a child who was born then is walking and probably talking at this stage. So many things might have happened to people in those 2 years, and you can imagine what these parents have gone through. And like we know, some of them already resigned to fate in 2014. So for those who probably kept up hope, I don't know what they will be going through now. We did hear some talk from the government saying that a suicide bomber in Cameroon might have been one of the girls. That story didn't catch a lot of fire, and we don't know if there's any leads that have come from that, but it's really heartbreaking and disheartening to know that over 200 girls at once were taken and are still not found. Of course, since then, a lot more, hundreds more have been abducted. We did hear that about 300 more were taken last year in several parts of the Northeast. And it continues to happen, maybe not in such a large scale, but I mean, a cumulative number runs into the thousands as it is now. And many of them have never gone back to their parents. Many of them, we don't know where they are. We keep assuming that they might have been married off. We assume sometimes they might be suicide bombers, but we just don't know. And it really just tells a lot about the country that we live in and where we find ourselves today. But we're going to be talking about that and more, of course, in the course of today's show. I have here with me Leonard Ebutse. Thanks for being here today. Let's start on that note now. It's a very sad narrative for Nigeria to be talking about this, and we just keep counting days without any way forward, especially with this number of girls. That definitely broke international news, got a lot of people's attention, and we thought that with that maybe we would get results. But 2 years on Thursday, nothing happened yet.
I would disagree that nothing has happened yet. We're well aware of the strides the military started making towards the end of the last administration, into this one. A lot of good news has been coming from the battlefield. We don't have a lot of faith in our country, but one thing we cannot lose is hope. So the fact that there has been no closure as to whether they are dead or alive, we should maintain that strand of hope. For every one Chibok girl kidnapped, like you pointed out, there are 10 others not exactly reported who were also kidnapped. And we're hearing news of people being recovered, being liberated from Boko Haram in the different camps in different parts of the country. So that's a good sign that we are making good progress.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, it's without a doubt. There's been reports many times in the past. I think there was a time when about 200 girls were actually recovered at once, and we found out that none of them were the Chibok girls. So I mean, there's no doubt that some girls have also been rescued over time, even boys sometimes. But this particular issue, why has it been so hard?
It's a war, and it's a war that has been on since 2009. At that point in 2014, when these girls were abducted, we all knew that Boko Haram had a bit of upper hand, took Nigeria by surprise. The military wasn't prepared for that kind of warfare. So 1 year after, the strategy started changing in favor of the Nigerian army. And so the nature of war, it's sheer unpredictability. Unfortunately, these people have been collateral damage, as it were. But I like to keep a note of hope that from the Boko Haram side, they've not told us these girls have been killed or murdered. And so it gives me a glimmer of hope that they are alive. And if they are alive, then definitely we're going to find them someday. Maybe not, definitely not as quickly as we wanted, but I like to keep that line of hope open for the sakes of the families of those involved, and also for our faith and belief in our country.
I mean, if something hasn't worked in 2 years, are we thinking of a change in strategy? What should we be doing now? Because, I mean, Mr. President did come in with a lot of promises and also said he was going to work hard to make sure these girls came back or come back. And we've collaborated now with a lot of countries around us and all of that. And there were speculations anyway at the time that maybe these girls had even crossed over from Nigeria to other countries. If with all of these collaborations and promises and, like you said, the military doing even more and getting an upper hand now, and we don't seem to have a trace still yet. What kind of hope then are we hanging on to?
What was
with the
wrong,
girls in particular?
what was wrong really was with the promises made by the administration. It was a little bit too ambitious. If you compare the success rate, the expected success rate, to the success rate in any terror war, the promise of a December endpoint for Boko Haram was unnecessarily ambitious. So some of us knew that wasn't going to happen. But if we are looking at progress made within the period, undoubtedly this administration is succeeding, not as fast as they promised, so there's a gap, but definitely a little bit good enough for us to have some hope. So it didn't work for 2 years. It could just click in one day. So one day we're going to hear that Shekau is history. One day we're going to hear that Boko Haram is history.
We've heard that Shekau is history a number of times.
Shekau is now maybe a cliche for any of the Boko Haram leaders, like the Niger Delta people had one name at a time. They keep recycling during the days of the creeks. So I like to believe that, like every other crisis that has happened in this country, Nigeria has demonstrated a resilience, especially when the crisis affects the entire nation. That unifying identity has always pulled us through. Yeah.
Well, Thursday will not be a celebration, definitely. We're just going to be hoping that sometime soon, maybe miraculously by Thursday, we would get some good news in regards to this particular issue. But I think,
pray so.
I mean, I don't know that anybody thought that when this started, it was going to take 2 years.
Absolutely.
With, no serious result. But moving on now to other things. The week, of course, was very interesting. Bukola Saraki, our Senate president, was in the news heavily from his Code of Conduct Tribunal case going on. Then the Panama Papers issue with him being in the mix as well. There was calls, of course, for people saying he should resign, and he's saying he's not resigning, that he will not be cajoled into resigning or pressured into resigning. There's a lot happening with him right now. Is he settled enough to do the job?
It's not a good time to be a Saraki right now, I can tell you that for free. But the whole point of the tribunal sitting on Saraki's case is to test his innocence. He has pleaded innocent of the charges against him, and so I totally do not understand the call for his resignation. It's almost at variance with the presumption of innocence. If we allow someone who has pleaded innocent and is on trial to resign on the basis of that allegation, we are setting a dangerous precedent.
But what happens with the new information coming with the Panama Papers, where we've seen at least one major casualty in the world, the Prime Minister of Iceland?
Yes.
And we're seeing pressure now being mounted on the Prime Minister of Great Britain,
Yes.
David Cameron. So there's that pattern already happening. So why should he be different?
But you see, the whole CCT thing preceded the Panama Papers, which is just a week old, right? And I expect that a vast majority of the people mentioned in the Panama Paper leaks will be legitimate businessmen who are looking for tax havens. Absolutely nothing wrong with looking for tax havens for your investment. So what will be the issue there would be the legitimacy of the transaction.
But we also hear about property that may not have been declared.
Yes, you see, there are two things here. First, he was already on trial on charges of wrong or improper declaration of assets or whatever it was, error, whatever it was the charges were, before the leaks happened last week. So whether or not this new discovery were part of the case against him before now is a little bit, it's premature for me to make that judgment. But certainly it does give the prosecution a bit of raw material to prove their case. But again, by the nature of law, he still stands innocent.